and said, you know what, we're going to go for it. We're going to bet on us. And so you just have to be willing to make sacrifices, especially as a founder. If you really believe in what you're doing and you have the work ethic to back it up, like good things are going to happen to you, but you have to be willing to make those sacrifices, which sounds super cliche, but that is my lived experience.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Side Hustle Hero, the podcast that inspires action and helps you grow your side hustle into a thriving income stream. I'm your host, Joan, author of The Way Success Works. Now, here's something we really haven't touched on before: turning your side hustle into a franchise. That's exactly what Jami Stigliano has done. She started teaching dance classes in New York City as her side hustle while working full-time in the music industry. But as her career became more demanding, she hit a crossroads. Should she stop teaching or find a way to keep it going? Jami made the choice to grow. With more clients saying, "Hey, you got to bring this to my city," she had a light bulb moment. That's when the idea of franchising DivaDance was born, and today it's grown to over 50 locations. In this episode, Jami breaks down the multiple revenue streams that you can tap into when you're franchising, what it takes to get started, the skill set needed to succeed, because let's face it, this path is not for everyone, and some of her key tips for growth, including mentorship and setting up an advisory panel. But before all that, if our chats are sparking your entrepreneurial spirit and providing valuable insights, consider giving the show a caffeinated thumbs up by shooting me over a virtual coffee. It's a real thing over at sidehustlehero.com/support. Thank you so much. Now here's my conversation with the founder of DivaDance and brand builder extraordinaire, Jami Stigliano. Well, welcome, Jami.
Thank you so much. Listen, as soon as I saw that your podcast out there, I'm like, I've got to talk on this because, as we'll get into, this is how it all started for me. So I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, back when you started teaching dance classes as a side hustle, did you ever imagine that it can grow into this full-time franchise operation with no less than 50 locations?
Definitely not. I never even intended for it to be a business. I created the classes because I wanted them. You know, the story really started on the corner of 57th and Broadway in New York City.
Okay.
I had gone to take a dance class at an amazing facility called Broadway Dance Center. It's an amazing place, but it really prepares folks who are Broadway bound or backup dancer bound to pursue their goals and their dreams. And I was going looking for fun. I wanted to meet new people. I was a young woman, just moved to New York City, had just started my career in the music business in a record company. And I went in there seeking to feel confident and have a fun workout. And I left feeling defeated. So like, that's why I say on the corner of 57th and Broadway, I said, I'm going to teach my own classes. And, you know, I just started teaching. I scheduled one class. People showed up and they paid me to be there. And then I just kept going. But no, to answer your question, ever intended to make it my full-time focus. And I certainly never imagined it would be a franchise.
We'll dig into this a little bit more in our conversation, but you just triggered a memory for me. And I had that exact same experience when I was living in Toronto, early 20s, went to this dance studio, and yeah, it was preparing you for the high-end stuff. And I had a ball, but this is not what I'm aspiring to do. I just wanted to go there for all the reasons you laid out. So I see that there's definitely a market for what you're doing.
And I hear that all the time. So yeah, when you go to do something you love to do, you should leave feeling great about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like feeling much better than when you walked in.
Exactly.
Well, what was the turning point that made you realize that this could be something bigger than just a few classes that you were doing?
Two really big things. Number one, as my career in the music business was starting to grow, I had more demands on me, right? I was traveling with artists. I was working later nights. I was, just the mental demands on me were bigger in my career. And I had a couple of choices. I could either stop holding my dance classes, or I could train other people to teach and deliver the same experience that I had created and I was having success with. And so most folks, when they hit that kind of disruption, they quit. To be honest, in my experience, see, like, oh, I'm going to start this thing. And then as soon as it's not easy for them, they give up. I didn't give up. I said, I could teach somebody else to do this. Here's kind of what I'm looking for. So that was my first time of going, wait a minute, like this could actually, I don't have to be there. It's not about me. I knew I had something bigger than me. And so I was able to create, nothing like what it is now with my instructor certification program, but, I had a little one sheet of like do's and don'ts, and here's the kind of person I want. And, and people kept coming, even if I wasn't there. The second big thing was that we started offering private parties, bachelorette parties. So when gals would come to New York City and they wanted to do something fun and something active, they would find us through Google and they would book a private party with us. And then those gals in the parties, I was teaching every single Saturday of my life for like 10 years in New York City. And my husband talks about this all the time. I was teaching these bachelorette parties, and these gals would come from other cities and go, "Oh my God, this is so fun. We should have this in Denver. You should bring this to Dallas. You should bring," and I was like, no. But then, and as I was looking to exit my music business career, those two big things came to mind. I'm like, well, I've trained other people to be able to do this, and people seem to want this in other cities. What if I could do that? So those were the two big moments for me.
That's a huge light bulb to realize that I don't need to be the one doing all the teaching.
Yes.
There's other people that could do that. What were you doing in your full-time work? Because I'm sure that played into your skill set for what you're now doing.
Oh, big time. So I had an amazing career in the music business. It started off, well, for the majority of it, I worked within the Sony music system. Okay. And for the bulk of that was at a record company called Jive Records. And this started when I was in college. I was a huge NSYNC fan. I turned over the back of it, the CD, remember CDs? And I saw a Jive Records logo, and I said, oh, I think I want to work there. Obviously I didn't, this is the late 90s. I didn't have as much access to information as young people do today about career paths.
Sure.
And access to people to be able to create internship opportunities. But I ended up doing an internship there, turned into a full-time career, very, very, very awesome career. It was mostly within the marketing part of the company. So essentially what I did was everything after the music was made, I was involved in. So early in my career, it was in a support role. And as I grew in my career, it was more of a leadership role. And I was essentially managing marketing campaigns for album releases and for artists. And so with that came branding, building a fan base, creating content to support those initiatives, KPIs, like measuring release numbers and seeing what levers we needed to pull, running advertising, all of that good stuff. And then also the big muscle that has helped me in the music, in the franchising industry is learning how to deal with different types of people. In the music business, I was, working with recording artists. I was working with their managers, their agents, all the people around them of varying levels of intelligence and competence, as you can imagine.
Yeah. And egos.
Correct. And so really, the biggest thing that I think I applied from my music business career, other than those kind of soft people skills, was really about building a brand and creating something. I was building fans for artists. That was really what I was doing. And so that's what I feel like I've been able to do for DivaDance, is I've been able to create an emotional connection for our clients and our community. And that has turned into people being, having a lot of lifetime value and, having a lot of heart and love for what we're doing here. And I've been able to make it like it's not a transaction we're having with our clients and in the DivaDance community. So that's the biggest thing. And then honestly, project management, like being able to, take this giant objective that we have and break it into smaller parts. Those are all things I definitely honed in my previous career for sure.
So I see that skill set serving you well in two aspects. One, creating what you've now done as a franchisor, but then also teaching those skills to the people that are starting up the franchises.
That's exactly right. And franchising is an awesome industry. It's so fun helping people reach their goals and their dreams. It has just been so much fun.
Well, you've certainly nailed the branding. When I looked at your website and your social media, it's like, oh, I want that. That'd be really fun to go to.
I'm so glad to hear that. And it's all authentic. That's who we are. There's authentically so much fun. So I'm really glad that we're translating that. Thank you.
So you've got this demand. People are asking you to do it in my town, do it in my city. You get the idea of maybe a franchise. How would you even start? That's not your background.
Yeah.
Where did you even know where to turn?
Yeah. So you want to scale a business, you got a few options, especially in, something where it has a location or a brick and mortar. And by the way, I don't require my franchisees have their own brick and mortar. They can operate their classes out of existing studios. So they can rent from existing dance fitness spaces or studios to hold their classes in. Because in New York City, I couldn't afford a beautiful dance studio and I didn't want to run a full-time dance studio. So there's a couple ways that our folks can get going. But, I looked at them and okay, well, do I open more DivaDance communities across the country? That takes a lot of capital and it takes a lot of people on the ground. And, so that was one option. The second was licensing, creating a program where people kind of like Zumba or other kind of group fitness programs where they pay us a licensing fee and then they can go do that in their community. And that was interesting to me, but you're not really creating a business for someone else. You're not
Right.
really, there, and you can't really have as much oversight of the person. And then I did a mentorship call. So I'm very passionate about mentorship. And for folks listening, there's so many places to find people who are willing to give you advice and ideas.
Yes.
And I met someone through a website called Clarity. I don't even know if it's still a website now, but basically you could pay for phone calls with mentors. And I looked I just searched like franchising. Like, does anybody on here that maybe knows about franchising? Found a fella who's actually Canadian, a guy named Dan Mesritsky, who owned a company that is like mobile fitness trainers. I'm like, well, let me talk to this guy. Maybe he can give me some insight. So, I put my little coins in the slot in the mentor. And in my call with him, he goes, this really is, you really should franchise this. And he was the first person that made me feel like it was accessible. Like I could do it. Because when you think of franchises, you think of McDonald's, you think of Chick-fil-A, you think of these giant brands who have a lot of money, and you assume it's not for you. It's not within your reach. And so I'm always grateful for that conversation, because he said, well, you should just franchise. I'm like, what do you mean I should just franchise? Like, how does that work?
Like it was nothing.
Yeah, perfect. And so that's when I went kind of back into my own personal network, and was aligned with some really amazing mentors there. Again, there's people all over that want to help you and want to teach. You just have to ask for help and for a few minutes of their time. And then off I went. I shut down my hobby business. So my side hustle was essentially, I didn't have proper bookkeeping. I didn't have proper, I filed my taxes and I did all the things you're supposed to do, but I wasn't that organized, and so I didn't have proper KPIs and tracking and data. Like I really just kind of ran it again, like a side hustle, as you do.
Yeah.
And, mostly through like PayPal. I'm collecting like people paying for their classes through PayPal. Well, that's not going to work when you become a franchisor. So in this process, I shut down my hobby business. I formed a new business entity.
Okay.
And through that was when I started organizing and getting all of my ducks in a row to franchise. So with that, I started a new bank account with only $10,000 in the bank, which is still a lot of money. And at the time, this was not my main focus. I didn't want to do a capital raise, but so it really took a lot of effort to or kind of mental effort to put that $10,000, my hands like shaking as I put the check in the bank. And that's really how I got started. I had an amazing lawyer who was introduced to me through my family, who helped me develop my legal documents. And with that, as part of developing the legal documents for franchising, he explained everything to me. And as part of explaining everything to me, we made decisions about our brand and our services that impacted those documents, that helped me get clarity and fine tune the economics of my business, things I had never thought of. And help me really define and clarify a lot of things.
This was a lawyer that specialized in franchises then.
Correct. Now, there's a lot of folks out there who say, oh, look, we can help you franchise. Only really a lawyer can help you, and a franchise attorney can really help you, because you have, the good news about franchising is it is heavily regulated, whether that's in Canada or in the United States, that it is heavily regulated by the government for the protection of everybody. So it's a very transparent type of industry. It's a very transparent way to do business. And what I like about it is it's very clear what you need to do to become a franchisor. Now, it's simple, but it's not easy, is really the way I sum it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Offering dance classes, was there someone, maybe it was the first mentor that you talked to, or maybe even the lawyer talked to you about differentiating yourself somehow? Because dance classes themselves aren't proprietary in terms of like, why would somebody buy a franchise versus just going out and doing themselves kind of argument?
Yes. Oh gosh, I love that question. So, for me, my proprietary sort of thing was really how we teach our classes. So the actual, like having a dance class, you're right. There's nothing proprietary about that. It's not that interesting or different. But the way we make them accessible to all adults is basically uses my secret sauce, the way that I created choreography and the way I teach it. So for anyone who watching this, if you've ever taken one of our classes, they're different. We have a method, we have a system and a way that we create confidence in people, no matter your ability level. If you like to dance, we have something for you. And so, that's really what's really proprietary about us. But as you may imagine about franchising, it's the holistic value of the whole system. It's the whole system. It's not just the service you offer, but the way we market it, the way we train our people, the way we build culture, the way we create our content, our value set, like the holistic, the sum of all of that is uniquely DivaDance, which is why I'm very abundance mindset. So I'm like, if someone wants to create another dance studio, awesome. I hope the world dances more. Great. But it would be nearly impossible for someone to replicate the sum of all of that, especially the core way that we deliver our classes.
Right. So what you're actually providing is the playbook.
That's exactly right. And that's what franchising is, which is so fun. Literally the playbook. Exactly right.
Well, I'm curious, how did you decide what the cost of a franchise should be?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. So you have to think about a few things. You have to think about the total investment for the entire thing. So for folks listening, just a little education. It's not just the franchise fee. They also your candidates also need working capital, and that may be obvious, but just to be clear,
Sure.
they need money for all their out-of-pocket expenses. They need to have insurance. They need to pay their people. They have to do their business entity formation, any kind of products or other things that they have to procure to operate or to offer the business. So for us, I have a lot of clarity on what that is. They have to do all their initial marketing, and so that is one big piece of it. And then what I like to do is on the value of my franchise, there's a couple things I've got to consider. Number one, they're getting a protected territory for 5 years.
Okay.
And so that's pretty major. So within most franchise systems, I say most because some are different, but most franchise systems, you're going to have a territory that is yours, that is protected for you for the duration of your term. And so that means that, the franchisor and another person can't come in and put another shop right next to yours. Again, all franchise systems are a little bit different, but what's great is that it's all very transparent. You will know exactly what the kind of the standards are with that. But yeah, so we place the value based on the exclusive territory and also all the initial training. So my franchise fee is $36,000, and then I need my candidates to have at least another $20,000 to $25,000 for that working capital. So having an investment that's under $100,000 for us is great because it also looks at the unit economics and how quickly I think they can recoup their investment. You're going to get a different type of franchise owner with certain investment levels as you may other. Also, it may be harder for some folks to qualify for certain funding at a certain level. So all of those factors kind of go into setting that franchise fee.
What would happen after 5 years?
So they can renew.
Okay.
Folks can renew if they're like, this is going great. So every franchise has a renewal fee. It's typically not the same amount that you paid at the very beginning. It's a lower fee. Or you can exit the business. You can sell, it can revert back to the HQ. In my case, it can revert back to us. So if at the end of those 5 years, you're like, you know what, I think I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. That's okay. We haven't had anybody do that. So typically you want to renew because a franchise is an asset. That's an asset that you've invested in and that you can then, ideally monetize or leverage for other, your next plan.
Exactly. Because if I've put my heart and soul into building this business, I just want to make sure that after 5 years and it's highly successful, that it's not going to be taken away from me somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we want our folks to renew. If it's going great, I want you to renew.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something interesting because when I think of a dance studio, I think of bricks and mortar.
Sure.
But that's not your game plan. How does it work for DivaDance?
So when I first started, I didn't want to have a studio. I didn't even know I wanted to do this all the time. I was like, I'm just going to have a class and see how it goes. And so I rented a little group fitness room. It was actually at a speech therapy office. They had an occupational therapy little fitness room, and they cleared out all the stuff and they rented it to me for $25. And that's when I was like, wow, there's actually places all over New York City that you can rent hourly. You can rent as needed. And you're also helping another small business in that process. They're like, wow, we have this space. We're not using it. We can monetize it. And so I started it off that way because I didn't have the capital to build out a space and I didn't want to run a facility. So that has served us very well. But over the years, we have, in 2020, actually January of 2020, wildly enough, we did build out our first brick and mortar. We built out here in Austin, Texas, where I'm now based. We built out our flagship studio because we hadn't had one up to that point. And so what we've learned in that process is what it does to the economics of the business. And my units that do have a dedicated studio, they're higher performing. And so what we now offer is an option. You can either have a dedicated studio, you can use partner studios, or you can do a hybrid. And my hybrid franchises are the highest performing, and they also have a lot of flexibility with it. So, essentially, if you can't find or you don't have access to the capital to do a build out of a studio, there's still a way to operate the business.
Right. And build up the business, show a track record. And maybe part of you does want to get into the real estate market. And this would be an opportunity to cash flow it.
That's exactly right. It's no different than like a food truck. It's like, we're going to do a food truck
Right.
and then we'll open, our own. And then sometimes some food trucks are like, we're never going to do that because we don't need to. So that has been very successful for us. And it also allows our franchisees to test the market and see the neighborhoods and kind of, get to know their area before they make that commitment for brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm. So as far as the business itself, then, what are the revenue streams for yourself as the franchisor and then as the franchisee?
So franchisors have me specifically, we
Yeah.
have a handful of revenue streams. Number one, royalties. Royalties are what folks pay to us on a monthly basis for our continued support of them. So when they make money, we make money. That's off their top line revenue. Our royalty is 10%. So if they do 20,000 a month, we're getting paid 2,000 for our continued support and resources and tools. So royalties, that is a super important revenue stream that obviously takes years and years and years to build up. The second are franchise sales. And so us selling new franchises, us doing area rep deals where they're buying the rights to multiple territories at once. That's a second big one. The third one are training fees. And so we have an instructor certification program that when our franchisees are hiring new instructors, they are required to pay a fee for their instructors to go through that program. And then we also collect tech fees. Tech fees are really just a pass through. They're not necessarily a profit center for us. They're essentially all the technology that we pay for on our franchisees' behalf so that we can we can leverage the bulk of them, the volume, then they pay us back their tech fee. And so then we also sell merchandise. So we sell merchandise to our franchisees, t-shirts and supplies. They need like fragrance for their studios, little buttons, pens, all that good stuff that's branded. They do buy those from us. But the majority, and then the last one would be my company owned units. So as a franchisor, if you own corporate stores that are owned by your HQ, then those are absolutely a revenue stream for you. So some franchisors have a few others, but those are our main ones. And then as a franchisee, there's really three core ones. It's your class business. So membership model, coming to people paying for classes, class packs and memberships. Second is those bachelorette parties that I got my start with back then. And then the third are something super special and unique, which are our programs. So those are multi-week programs that have some sort of payoff at the end for our clients, like a video shoot or a performance, a recital.
Oh, fun.
Christmas parade. You get to be at the halftime of the Suns game performance. So those are the three primary verticals for our franchisees.
Okay. And can the franchisees sell their own merchandise there over and above the branded DivaDance merchandise?
They can. For us, we just have to approve the design. And typically, apparel and retail it's really ancillary. It's not going to be their core part of their business. And we kind of view it as promotional. So they can sell it, yes.
You mentioned from the franchisor that you have a training fee. I like the idea of you being in control of the training for the instructors, because I was going to ask you about how the heck you maintain that consistency across 50 franchises. Like, for example, I had a marketing expert on recently where we were talking about McDonald's, and we both readily agreed that they don't make the best hamburger. But what people can expect is that consistency, getting that hamburger anywhere. So how do you deal with that with DivaDance? You've already answered part of it, that being training, having control to a degree over the training of the instructors.
Yeah, I really think of it as it's really professional development for our instructors. We're not necessarily teaching them how to count to 8. We're not necessarily teaching them how to move their body, because they do need to come in with some level of dance experience, even if it's at a very amateur or recreational level. They were a cheerleader in high school, or they were on their dance team, or they danced in college, or they've taught kids dance before, something. What we're doing is we're elevating that. We're giving them the professional development to help them learn how to teach adults at all levels, how to create confidence, how to create emotional safety for folks so that they feel welcome and they don't feel out of place. Thanks. And then also how to create choreography that generates high cardio and those yummy health benefits that we want, that release the happy chemicals and gets takes care of your heart. So that's what they go through in our program. What we don't do is mandate required choreography. So we want our instructors to create their own choreography. This helps us retain good talent. It helps them love their job. It helps our clients feel like they're getting something a little different each time, but it still follows the DivaDance framework. And so that certification program allows us to at least take the first step in saying, here's how we do things, and here's how you bring your unique point of view and creativity into that. And
Yes.
then we do a lot of ongoing professional development. We have choreo camps. We have virtual classes. I teach every week from Austin, and instructors can tune in to take my class via Zoom. So we do a lot of that. But, I don't see us, never say never, but I don't see us ever mandating required choreography, because
Yes.
part of what I love about what we do is our instructors get to be creative.
Hmm. And having that component in there too is additional incentive for you as the franchisor to really support the franchisees, because the better they do, the more instructors they're hiring, and then the more revenue for you that generates on so many levels.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. And one
Yeah.
last thing to add on that is that we don't require that our owners teach their own classes, and we don't even require that our owners have a dance background. So our instructor certification is really there to help all of our owners feel confident that the product that's going to be delivered is high quality. We call it champagne quality. And without the owner themselves being responsible for being that expert.
Right. Huh. Well, tell us about the first franchise that you sold that wasn't a family member or a friend, but it was like a true third party
Yeah.
purchaser that said, I believe in this. I want to be part of it.
Yes. Oh, I'll never forget that day. Her name was Amanda. It was in Washington, D.C. She found us on Instagram because she loved Beyonce and she saw some of the choreography that we were posting. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how did this woman find us? How is this even possible? She took a huge chance on us. And so what I loved about our relationship with her, she has since exited the business and she sold, but all great terms. And she's like a friend, kind of a friend of DivaDance now at this point, and she has a lifetime membership. But what your first one is so important, because it's calibration time. It's calibration time. It's where you're going to build your tools and your training, and you're also going to learn how to work with people and really clearly define the type of franchise owner that is going to be successful in your system.
Okay.
And she did totally fine. But I now, because of our relationship with her and a few after her, I have so much more clarity about the type of owner that will be successful with us. And not as a human being, but their circumstances. So she was a travel nurse, which is a very demanding job. And at that time, I'm like, oh, yeah, you can do this on the side. And now I would never award a franchise to a travel nurse, because I want to make sure she's set up for full success. And unless she has, a team on the ground running everything for her, and she's a bit more of a passive owner.
Okay.
But that's something I learned from that first owner was, okay, now I understand the type of person that will succeed with us. And she gave us a lot of grace. I didn't have all the manuals I have now and all the checklists and all the templates. But, I definitely went into it. I'm like, well, if we can award our first unit, we can do 1,000. If we can do one, we can do 1,000.
That must have been an amazing moment when that money landed in your bank account from that first sale.
It really was, and it went out just as quickly as it came in.
Yeah, right.
Imagine.
Yeah. Yes,
And,
yes.
we've always been very bootstrappy. We've never had a major cash infusion, and I didn't pay myself in the business for years. And that's
Right.
something important for folks listening, I think, to know is you got to be ready to make sacrifices. I lived with my parents again. My husband and I moved in with my mom and dad when I was 40 years old. And this is not that long. This is only 5 years ago. This is not that long ago. It's before we had a family, but we shared a car. I stole my husband from his career to work within DivaDance full time to help me with our technology and some other things internally that would have cost me so much more to pay another person.
Wait, you're not working full time at this point either?
Oh no.
So that's a real leap of faith for the two of you then.
It really was, but we knew. Yeah, and I gotta give my husband a ton of credit, because he really was like, DivaDance is pretty great. You should really do this instead of the music business. I'm like, no. Well, I got this whole other career, but yeah. So I stole it from his career. We've both been full time within DivaDance for years now, and we didn't pay ourselves for a long time. We did a ton of sacrifices. We sold our apartment. We owned an apartment in New York City that our old careers helped us buy,
Right.
and it also helped us make DivaDance our full-time focus. We leveraged that asset and said, you know what, we're going to go for it. We're going to bet on us. And so you just have to be willing to make sacrifices, especially as a founder. If you really believe in what you're doing and you have the work ethic to back it up, like, good things are going to happen to you, but you have to be willing to make those sacrifices, which sounds super cliche, but that is my lived experience.
Mm-hmm. And if that takes moving back into with mom and dad and they're willing to do that, then that's what you do, right?
100%.
Wow.
And honestly, it was a blessing. He was huge, and I'm better for it for sure.
Because you haven't had any outside funding or investors, correct?
We haven't.
Yeah.
We haven't. It doesn't mean I wouldn't at some point. It's not something that we need now. We have been really making very strategic moves in growing our business. We've been very strategic about our company-owned units as a source of consistent revenue and cash flow for my HQ to offset that. We've tightened up on a few different kind of overhead things that were like, you know what, we don't really need this thing. Let's do without, like you do in your family. Let's delay gratification. Let's go a little bit longer before we buy a new whatever that thing is, And so that has been really, really, really critical in that process. But we have not taken on any outside partners, but it doesn't mean we wouldn't in the future.
Yeah. So from your experience then, who would make the best franchisor? Like what skill set would they need to bring to the table?
Yeah, it's not for everybody. First of all, you're in the people business. So even if you're in the burger business or the pizza business or the muffin business, you're really in the people business as a franchisor because your franchisees are your people. They're your business. And so if you go into it thinking that you don't have to serve people and be a servant leader, you will not do as well. You will have friction with your owners. You will be stressed. You will have a lot of problems, and you won't have a strong culture that then attracts more people to your system. And so first and foremost, you got to be confident about being in the people business. The second is, there's a lot of things you got to be very buttoned up on in your operations as a franchisor, because again, you have to provide audited financials every year. There's a lot of transparency. So if you as a founder are not like good at that, then you need to have somebody that is. You need to have so I have a business partner. Her name is Sarah. She's incredible. And I always say that I'm the glitter, she's the glue. So she's keeping, she's like, does our state registrations, make sure all of our documents are on point. She works with a third party to make sure all of our financials are up to date and accurate, and our insurance, stuff that, many founders are like, ugh, I don't want to do any of that, So obviously I'm aware of it and I'm involved. She's really making sure that we are totally buttoned up on that side of things. So that's a second. And then just the third is, you're really a teacher, as a franchisor. You're really like creating educational systems, and you're creating things to help your developer. You're helping your franchisees be successful, and you're teaching them how to run the business. And you have to be passionate about developing those tools and those resources that they need to be successful. Because one of the things they talk about in franchising is the average person with average intelligence on an average day should be successful in your franchise. So your franchise can't be one where only the top 1% of intelligence be successful in this business. Franchising should be average person, average intelligence, average day. They should be able to be successful. So as long as you come into it knowing those things and you have a great product or service or business, you'll do great and you'll love franchising.
Great. Those are excellent things to check in with yourself about. Is this truly a fit for me or not?
Yes.
Well, how did you begin to scale? You talked about that first one. You started from scratch again in order to track everything, record it.
Yep.
And then, and then what?
So the exciting thing about our growth is we have grown largely from within. Two main sources how we've grown. Folks who love DivaDance, who have found us through every new franchise that opens, the bubbles start happening. And those people either like moved somewhere else or they have a friend somewhere else. So over half of my current franchisees in my system are from within. So they, went to class, let's say in the Dallas area, then they opened in the other side of Dallas, or they moved from Austin to Phoenix. They opened a franchise in Phoenix. The other half are folks who wanted classes like this in their area, searched for it, couldn't find anything, and found us. And so we've invested very heavily in SEO from day one. Even when I was like, oh, we can't afford this. We've got to cut this. We've got to take this out of our budget. We can't do this SEO. It's, even at that time, it was only like $450 a month. And I'm like, I just don't know how we can justify this. But we did it. And people have found us through Google that say, oh, I was looking for classes like it. Couldn't find any in my area. I saw that you franchised, and now I'm inquiring. So those are the two biggest ways that we have been able to grow. More recently, we've invested in attending a couple of women's events. We've never done any like paid advertising for our franchise opportunity, but we've had a lot of success going to events where there are women like a DivaDance client or DivaDance franchisee, and they see that they learn more about us, and then they take the next step with us.
I could see that light bulb moment for the entrepreneur looking for a dance class and not being able to find it. Let's see. If there's not anything in my community, maybe there's an opportunity here.
Yes. Yeah, we've banked on that. It's been awesome. I love hearing from, even if I hear the same kind of anecdote over and over, I still love it. When people are like, I was looking for a class like this and I couldn't find anything. And then I found you guys and I wondered if you franchise, and you do franchise. I'm never like, yeah, I've heard this before. I love it. Every time they tell me that, I'm like, yes, exactly.
Fantastic. Well, what's been your biggest challenge along the way?
I mean, cash flow is hard,
Yeah.
especially as you scale and you add more resources. People are expensive. When you add the overhead of employees, these stakes are exponentially higher because you are now responsible for people's livelihood, and this is
Yeah.
their job. And so that has been huge. Because we've never taken on any outside capital, we have had to continuously grow while also building things, like adding new people into the system, and so being able to service them while still maintaining kind of our core and our base, and servicing our company owned units. So that has always been a challenge. I mean, any
Yeah.
entrepreneur, cash flow is stressful. It's very stressful, but and so I'm not going to act like, yeah, everything's been amazing, like we make so much money. I mean, we're doing totally fine, but it's definitely, that has been hard. The
Mhm.
second thing is, when you are a founder and a CEO, you have so many competing priorities and so many different things that you could work on, or you should work on, or you should, but time is not infinite, and
Yes.
your human resources are not. And now I have two small children, and so, but they're my priority, and so I'm at home. I'm doing bath from 4 to 8 p.m. every night. Like that's my priority.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're creating a culture where people aren't burnt out, and while also still achieving all these great things that you want to do as a business. And so being able to operate under some sort of system that keeps you disciplined and organized, because it's very easy to get distracted. And then if you are franchising, everybody has a thing, oh, we should do this, we should do this. And, we have a pretty good system of like, does this align with we call them rocks? Like, does this align with our quarterly rocks? Like, is this something that we've all agreed is like the thing we need to be focusing on? So it takes a lot of discipline to not just jump at all the shiny objects.
Sounds like you're a proponent of EOS.
I am. We haven't formally implemented EOS, but we do run some components of it. And I definitely subscribe to a lot of the philosophies. We haven't formally implemented it across everything we do. But yeah,
Okay.
the rocks are great. And they have a really great meeting structure called an L10, like your leadership or level 10 meeting. And that's a great way to run your meetings as a team. So there's definitely a few nuggets, even if you don't implement the full thing, that you can still implement and have great, as they say, traction.
That's right. When you were you hiring like part-time contract work, or were you recruiting full-time right from the beginning?
I love contractors. Like, I feel like, from my like wide network of folks from my former career, from other great, networks that I've built through, my college alumni association or my sorority alumni association, or just like great friends that I've made, my family's just people that I've been introduced to. There's so many folks that want to help you. And if you can't afford to put them on a salary, it doesn't mean you can't leverage their talent in some way.
Yeah.
And so I have really gotten very far with contractors. Now, contractors are hard because you're working on their schedule, their time, you're really on
Yeah.
their terms, as it should be. So they may not move as fast as you want them to. They may not be as responsive as you need them to be. But having an employee is a major investment, because
Mhm.
people don't realize it's not just a salary. It's, the taxes you're investing, the payroll fees that you're paying, if you're offering them benefits, which hopefully you are, even just like it's another mouth to feed at the Christmas party or whatever. There's just, employees are expensive. So
Yeah.
I got by for years with just hiring my little, hired guns for different things that I
Yes.
needed, and paying them hourly or monthly, little small retainers or project basis. I got by for a long time doing that. And so for anyone listening, I would just say that there's so many great folks out there that are kind of gig folks that on a project basis can help you. You just need to get very clear about what you want their deliverables to be,
Yeah.
and what the scope of work is. And I think you can get pretty far. There's also a lot of awesome overseas workers. We use folks from a website called onlinejobs.ph, some folks in the Philippines that can help with administrative work. And the compensation that we pay those folks is a very high earning individual there in that culture. So there's so many great ways to get the resources you need without overextending yourself with employees.
Mm. What's been your biggest surprise in building your franchise network? Something that people don't usually consider or think of?
The industry of franchising is extremely generous. And one thing that I've been so surprised by are I don't have a ton of direct competitors in the space, but I've seen other competing concepts, quote unquote, that are
Okay.
totally collaborative with each other.
Wow.
That there's just such an abundance mindset in franchising that is so refreshing because when I was in the music business, it's the opposite. It's very
Yeah.
competitive. There's a lot of posturing. There's a lot of a lot of ego, a lot of things going on in the music business. And in franchising, it's very abundant. It's very collaborative. It's how can I help you? The women don't compete with each other, and the men, in my experience, they view women as equals, which is not how the music business was. So that's
Right.
been surprising and refreshing. And again, even folks that like, okay, I have a massage concept and you have a massage concept, they still talk to each other because that like why not? And so it's
Yes.
really it's kind of a value set of abundance. It's been a big surprise for me. And I like contributing to that because that's how I want to operate as well.
Very nice. You mentioned a mentor that really helped you launch this. Do you have a mentor today in any respect?
I do. I have a woman named Shannon Wilburn. She was a founder of a franchise brand called Just Between Friends. She scaled it to about 150 locations, recently sold it in the last couple of years. And she has dedicated her time to helping female franchise founders get our footing and find sisterhood. She's built some little cohorts of women and it's been so much fun. So she's absolutely a mentor. I have several other people. I formed an advisory board about a year ago, folks who they don't do it for we pay them a small little honorarium when they meet with us and give us advice. But these are folks that don't do it for the money.
Right.
They're really doing it because they want to help us. And so I have some really great people and I'm very grateful for that. But I also, why I feel like I've kept these people is I listen to their advice. I take their advice seriously and I apply it and I'm very coachable. And I definitely, when I talk to those folks, I soak up anything that they're willing to tell me and then I put it into action. So, but Shannon has been probably my top mentor at this time. I can call her anytime and she knows a lot about franchising and she's just good people. So.
And I can tell you're a very good teacher because you're a very good student. You know the
Thank
value
you.
of that. Yeah.
Well, I was a terrible actual student in college with my full grade. You know why? Because I was in leadership in my sorority Greek system, and that was because I was running a business. I was running a business in college, and because Greek sorority Greek organizations they're businesses, and
Yeah.
so my actual GPA is underwhelming, but what I left college with was a 4.0 in entrepreneurship, really.
Yes. And if you had really excelled in school, you might not be an entrepreneur today.
You're so right about that. It's
Yeah.
very true. Very.
You mentioned the advisory board. How did you come about forming them? I love the idea of that. Were they people that you just reached out to in your business network, or were they friends? How did that come about?
So my primary mentor I mentioned, Shannon, we were having this kind of cohort meeting with the other female founders, and she mentioned her advisory board, and we were all like, "What? Tell us more about this advisory board. That sounds really interesting." We're all at the place in our brands where we need more help, but we can't afford expensive consultants. And some of the folks out there are rightfully so. They command a very high compensation because they're very experienced, and they should do that. But there are a select number of folks in the franchising industry, as I mentioned, that they don't need the compensation. They do it because they want to give back and they want to help nurture the next generation. And so
Nice.
Shannon said, well, you have to talk to a fella named John Francis. So for anyone listening, you're thinking about franchising, you want a mentor. He goes by Johnny Franchise in the franchising industry, which makes it sound like he's like got a little bit of a slick on. He's not at all. He's such a dad. He's so cool. He's so sweet and so knowledgeable. And so I brought him on to help us assemble our advisory board. And so with that, he had conversations with folks based on our goals, our needs, our objectives, where my blind spots were, where my holes were, of folks that would be the right fit for us. And so we identified some folks who had some financial acumen that we could really value from. And I have a woman named Laura Coe on my board who founded a brand called Snapology and sold it to a company called Unleashed Brands. And so I knew I wanted a founder that had an exit as well, a founder who had built something and then exited. So I wanted that perspective because it's not like I'm looking to do that tomorrow, but eventually that's definitely on the radar. And so he helped me based on my vision of who I wanted to be advising me. he helped me find the right people. And
Excellent.
he told them about DivaDance, and they were very, I had kind of exploratory calls with them where I kind of sold myself to them. And they've been part of our team for the last year, and they have added exponential value.
Oh, and just that third party, unbiased experience and somebody who's already been there, done that, can see when you're heading in the right direction or you're heading down a path
No,
that's not going to be
so true.
good. Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
And most people do want to help. They really do.
They do. They really do.
Well, you kind of already answered this, but just in case there's something else, what advice do you have for someone considering turning their side hustle into a franchise?
I mean, my primary, and I don't think I've said this yet, is you just got to stay consistent. You just got to stay consistent with it. You got to keep going, and you've got to really define those unit level economics. So a lot of times we have this little business that generates, and we think we could scale it, but you've skipped over some very core pieces of the operation. I'm gonna give you a quick example, John.
Please.
So, for some of us in our side hustle, we're also the service provider, so we don't pay ourselves. Well, that's problematic if you want to franchise, because your franchisees need to know, what are my labor costs? So you have to run, if you're thinking of franchising, you have to run your side hustle like it's like a real business. It can't just be like a thing that makes money. You have to really run it from the lens of, this is someone's business. You have to have all your financials organized. You have to document everything, and staying consistent in that journey and refining things. I just had a mentorship call with a couple last week who have a really awesome concept in the party and celebration space. And they had lost their clarity a little bit about their exact business. And they've been like, well, we don't really pay ourselves, and then what our economics look like. And I'm like, no. We got to like strip this down a little bit, simplify it. You have to, even if you're not going to pay yourself, you have to at least take a distribution or something so that you can delineate what the labor costs are. And you have to really clarify your products and services, because it's just a little bit murky, And so if you're going to franchise, you just need a lot of clarity and you need a lot of consistency. And if you don't have either of those two things, you are not ready to franchise. You're just not. And it costs a lot of money to develop all your paperwork and the things. So, you don't want to make that investment if you're not truly ready. Some people say, oh, you need $1 million to franchise. I didn't have $1 million to franchise. I started with 10,000, but I got creative with payment plans of people, and my lawyer, we did like a 3-year, $300 a month, like very long-term payment plan. I was really lucky there. But yeah, I would say if you are going to franchise, you need access to at least 100,000 in cash to do your initial paperwork.
Yeah, that's just the reality. So what's next for DivaDance?
Yeah, man, we have a big couple of years coming to us. We're finally kind of coming out of where I've been like planting the seeds, watering them, putting the sun on them. And I think we're going to see a lot of blooms happen. We've had some buds, but I think we're going to see a big garden here in the next couple of years. So I've been pivoting a little bit to doing more area rep deals. Area rep deals mean folks have the rights to develop an area versus just buying one franchise. So it's a bigger investment for them, but it's a bigger opportunity, and it helps us grow faster. And so I have a few of those deals coming together, which are with some existing owners within my system. So that's really exciting. And then definitely continued international growth. We are planning to continue expanding. I have one franchise in Mexico City.
Nice.
We're hoping to have more. And then absolutely international. I mean, dance is not just for Americans, and it's, people love dancing to American pop music all over the world. And so we definitely know that we have a global brand ahead of us. We just have to do that the right way. And, I just mostly want to continue to have a strong culture and have profitable franchise owners, because if you have profitable and happy franchise owners, sky's the limit.
Absolutely. Well, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Jami?
Well, I'm very involved on Instagram. I'm very proud of my social feed that I have on there. So you can get to know a lot about me there. And so my Instagram is at Jami Stig. So it's Jami with no E, JamiStig. My brand is at DivaDance HQ. We're on all the social platforms. Please follow us on social, because we have a lot of fun. But my particular Instagram, I share a lot of different things about, franchising and being an entrepreneur. And I do have a link on my Instagram as well. I send an email out every Friday. It's called Founder Friday. And it's where I kind of share the good, bad, and struggly of building a business while raising 2 small humans. So if you like quick and fun, entertaining emails every Friday, feel free to sign up for that through my Instagram.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that. And I'll be sure to get the links in our show notes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
I think it was on your website. There's a photo of a woman holding a diary or a notebook. And it says something along the lines of, Beyonce
Same hours in a
has,
day as Beyonce.
yeah,
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. You have the same hours in a day as Beyonce. It's true. Now, she may have more resources we do in terms of like a cook and a staff,
Yes.
but she still has the 24 hours in a day. And that motivates me to like take care of my health and like do some things with and be present for my family. So it's really true. You got the same hours in a day as Beyonce.
So what's your best tip, Jami, to inspire others to start or grow their side hustle?
I just go back to consistency. My
Yeah.
locks, before I had 2 kids on my lock screen, my daughters, before that, my lock screen on my phone said, just keep going. Just keep going. And, you know, when things happen and they're not how you want it, don't quit. If I had quit teaching these classes when I had some disruptions in my schedule, we would never be changing the lives that we are now. I would never be putting women into a business that they love now. And I would never have created freedom and flexibility for my own life and my own family. So just keep going is my best advice to any entrepreneur.
And sometimes it can be so successful above and beyond anything that you could have imagined.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jami, for your insights, not only into the world of franchising, but concepts and ideas that we can apply to really any side hustle. It's so important for growing a business. And of course, thank you for being today's Side Hustle Hero.
So fun. Thank you so much.
As Jami mentioned, paying attention to the rocks is essential. I briefly touched on EOS, which stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a powerful methodology for running a business efficiently and with laser focus. I've decided to apply EOS to Side Hustle Hero. If you follow me on social media, you might have seen last month that I spent a few days on a retreat. The focus? Creating a vision for where I see Side Hustle Hero 10 years from now, and then working backwards to determine what steps need to happen now in this quarter to bring that vision to life. You've heard me say this before. If you want your side hustle to grow into something really substantive, you've got to treat your side hustle as a business. And applying EOS is one way I'm doing that. So what exactly is it? EOS, or Entrepreneurial Operating System, is a set of simple yet effective business tools and principles that helps entrepreneurs and business owners gain clarity, create structure, and get everyone on the same page. It focuses on 6 key components: vision, people, data, issues, processes, and traction. The introduction and Bible for implementing EOS is the book called Traction by Gino Wickman. How else does it apply to a side hustle? Well, even if your side hustle is just getting off the ground, applying EOS can be incredibly beneficial. Start by developing your vision. What's the big picture goal that you're working towards? Once you've nailed that down, EOS encourages you to focus on the rocks, or 90-day priorities. These are specific, actionable goals that move your side hustle forward in manageable quarterly increments. The system helps ensure that you're tracking the right metrics to ensure success. The most significant benefit of using EOS in your side hustle is focus. You're likely juggling a whole lot: full-time job, personal commitments, and of course, your side hustle. EOS brings clarity, helping you to prioritize what really matters. It also gives you the tools to build a solid foundation, ensuring that you're just not working in your business, but on it. That was the main driving force behind me choosing to get away for what I called my corporate retreat, to step back from the business and develop a plan to work on the business. This mindset shift will help you grow faster, smarter, and with less burnout along the way. I actually learned about EOS through my involvement as a board member of my 111-year-old Rotary Club. We're currently transforming how we run our meetings and operations using EOS principles, and it's making a huge difference. Let me know your thoughts about EOS, franchising, or side hustle life in general. Well, that's a wrap for today. You'll find links to Jami's Instagram, both her personal as well as for Dance Diva, and the full show notes at our website, sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying what you're seeing in this podcast, it would be so appreciated if you would take a moment and add your comment, share the episode, and please subscribe. It'll let others know that there's valuable content here to help them start or grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.